Shouts out out here in Singapore once again on your Night Owl podcast. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. And whether it's night or daytime for you, I really, really appreciate every one of you taking the time to sit down and listen. So whether you're on your commute or sitting at home trying to chill for a little bit, or you're just, taking some time out for yourself, I really, really appreciate you being here with me. So as always, you guys, I actually derive a lot of my inspiration from the world around me. I take it very seriously. It took me a long time to get to this place where I'm peaceful enough in my daily routine and the people that I hang around, that I'm able to be open and receptive to messages from the universe, like things that are happening every day that are very, very relevant. So I want to tackle this thing that I actually adjusted on my bio in my Instagram page a while back. I adjusted a while back, mostly because this is honestly how I feel about things. For a long time, the bio was about, my list of accomplishments. And then it was the list of things that you could possibly learn from me. And then it was a list for a long time, you guys. And then, of course, it was like all the many hats that I wear. And I was thinking, okay, that's kind of stupid too. There is no hard or fast rule on what to write in your bio. So I put up there that I am managed by a management company. And then, of course, I wanted to give you my life philosophy. And to be very honest, I don't believe in black and white. I believe in the gray. And that's why I've made it my life's ambition, my life's work, to teach people how to manage the gray. So when I talk to you about emotional intelligence and people skills, it's managing the gray, because I don't believe that it's easy or appropriate to judge somebody based on what simple things you see about the situation. So let me put it into context for you, yeah? Because it's important for me to give you a couple examples so you really understand what it is I'm talking about. For the most part, we have our idea of a situation. Something can happen. It may mean nothing at all, but in your eyes, based on your past life experience, not like your life before this one, I mean like in the past, in your life, your experience, right? You have an idea of what's right and what's wrong. And in your understanding of the world around you, you've decided that these are the options presented before you. Now, on the surface level, as you go to tell the story, it starts off as someone did this to me, and so I did this, right? Let me pick a specific example. Infidelity is a really good one, actually. I've had several clients who have dealt with infidelity in their marriages, and even in their relationships. Some of them were just dating somebody and the infidelity came up, and immediately they cut everything off and they avoided the entire situation. Some of them have tried really hard to work through it. And so I'm going to kind of give you like a quick example of how you can't really judge whether it's black or white, because there's so much gray in between. I think I've done another episode before now about triggers and traumas, and I think that really plays an important part right now with this specific example, because if you avoid the trigger every time, chances are you repeat the mistake over and over again as well. Okay, so bear with me as I try to set the scene for you a little bit. So these two people have been dating for a very, very long time. And while they were dating for quite some time, at some point in the relationship, one person dipped out on the other. They ended up having a sexual relation with another person, an unknown person. It wasn't a related person, not one the other person knew at all. Completely different person, right? A stranger. And it was one time, but at some point, the guilt of the fact that she did this thing overcame her and she came clean to the partner. At which point, of course, his whole world is shattered and he's thinking, what the hell? Like, I thought we were good. I thought everything was fine. And then I find out you went and did this. Now I'm questioning everything. So I get that, okay? I understand that this shattered the trust between both people, because now she has to watch everything she says and he is going to question everything she says. But in this particular situation, I also know that she was unhappy for a long time, and while she tried her best in her limited capacity to tell the other person, to tell her husband that, she was having a tough time, she wasn't, stuff wasn't going well between them and stuff wasn't going well in other aspects of her life, and then this finally led to this infidelity, and it's caused even more problems. The part that I don't want to judge her for, right, is the fact that she had trouble with something and she didn't or wasn't able to effectively communicate her needs at the time to her husband. Now, stepping out of the relationship, wrong. Wrong. I believe it's wrong. I believe it's wrong to step out and go and find comfort in the arms of somebody else when you've already committed to this one person. I think it's wrong. Okay, I'm very, very clear on that. But I can't judge her for making a bad decision. It doesn't make her a bad person, but it is a bad decision. But I also know in the back of my head that she has a reason for why she did what she did. Whether she can say it out loud, whether she acknowledges it, whether she's conscious of it, I'm not sure. But the point is, there was a reason why she stepped out, and that's the part that needs to be addressed to be able to heal, right? Otherwise, you're causing more drama, which means this new person, this husband, is going to be hurt going forward, and the wife is going to continue making the same mistakes until she learns to set boundaries or ask for what she needs. So here's the gray that I try really hard to help people manage or learn to manage. In a situation, in a relationship, right? There will be things that work very, very effortlessly. Maybe you're able to work around each other's schedules, no problem. You go to work, he goes to work, you come back home, you have time together, perfect. But there will be aspects of the relationship as well that are very difficult to speak about because maybe you're embarrassed, maybe you've never seen people speak about these things before, maybe it's not something you've witnessed outside of the movies and you've kind of disassociated yourself with the movies because that doesn't seem like a likely scenario in your actual life. So in those instances, if you don't know that there is a need you're missing, you don't know how to articulate it, you don't know how to encourage the other person to meet you halfway, you're going to find yourself building up this resentment, this almost like building the elephant in the room almost, because you're not able to talk about the thing that really matters to you and you can't get it solved within the relationship. So then unfortunately, you end up going to an outside source. Either way, you're going to find a way to meet that need, but it's going to be the worst possible scenario because you should be getting it in this relationship itself. You should be able to ask for it, or at least talk about how you can get the need met. Maybe it's not your specific idea of how to meet that need. Maybe it's a different, a hybrid version of that instead. So let me get really specific, okay? Maybe in your life, as the wife, in your life, in your past, you were never hugged, you were never told you were loved. Your parents are very, very quiet as far as words of affirmation and physical touch. So it's something you've always craved because you've never had it before. Maybe your husband at the moment is also quite reserved. He's very, very good provider. He's a very good father to your kids. Y'all are really great about managing life, like on a materialistic term. Finances are taken care of. You have the luxuries of, modern day life. There's nothing that you're missing in that aspect. But the intimacy that you crave is a little more physical and verbal. And unfortunately, he's not able to meet those needs. Now, whether he knows you need it that way or not, it remains to be seen because you need to be able to understand it for yourself that that's what you want and that's why you want it. And then you need to be able to tell it to him in a way that he will understand as well. A lot of times when we ask people for what we need, it comes out as a complaint, not a suggestion of something that they could do. A lot of times we're quick to criticize what the other person isn't doing rather than applaud the few times that they do something that makes you feel good in order for them to get the encouragement to continue doing those specific things. So if you notice, a lot of it is rooted in our speech. It's the way we speak. It's the things we focus on, the things we draw attention to. Everybody knows for every animal on the planet, encouragement works. Rewards work. Criticism also works, but in the opposite direction, which means they're going to stop hanging out with you as much. They're going to try and avoid you as much as possible because they don't want to feel that feeling when they're being criticized, right? You've seen it when dogs are wagging the tail versus their tail goes tucked between their legs because they're afraid or they don't feel comfortable. And a lot of times there have been videos online and even experiments that have been done where it doesn't matter what you say. You could say loving words but in a really harsh tone and the dog will still respond the same way because it still feels that same way. Do you know what I'm saying? So in that regard, if you are one of those people that gets hung up on things that aren't being done around the house, things that aren't being done to your expectations or whatever, the other person will generally try to distance themselves from you in order not to receive those kinds of feedback. Now, if you were to do the opposite, right, and this is an experiment anyone at home can actually try, instead of telling people what they haven't done, encourage the things that they have. I've done it with my daughter before. If I point out the mistakes in her writing, she gets very, very upset. And I already know she's beating herself up inside her head because she doesn't like making mistakes in the first place. But I know that if I don't show her where she made the mistake, she's not going to be able to grow from that. But what I end up having to do is congratulate her on all the things that she did right and sandwich those bits of criticism in between. And it has to be in such a way that it's not a criticism at all. It's almost like if I go through her dictation, the corrections, and I'm looking to see what the mistakes are because I need to know what the patterns are. Is it a specific type of spelling rule that she's getting wrong every time? Is she forgetting to put capitals on, proper nouns, stuff like that? I need to know what the pattern is. So once I realize what the pattern is, I need to be able to tell her, hey, you know what? You would get more points if you do this, this, and this. If you have trouble with these kinds of words, maybe, it's a I before E except after C kind of rule, or maybe it's a compound vowel situation. So you need to understand why it is the way that it is. What I've learned through a couple of years of schoolwork, right, is I need to make up a story for how she will remember that in the future. Instead of telling her, oh, you got this wrong, you should remember this rule. So what ends up happening is stuff like, what was she doing yesterday? She has dictation today. We studied yesterday and she got 3 words wrong. The words have nothing to do with each other. Don't even ask me, get me started on why MOE teaches spelling this way. It pisses me off. But the 3 words she got wrong were participate, approach, and tortoise. And I had to come up with a silly nonsense story on how to remember those words. But guess what? She definitely remembers them now. Sorry about that. I had to make sure that she remembers participate as 3 parts. So part, P-A-R-T, ICI, I-C-I, pate, P-A-T-E. So she broke it up into 3 different sounds and she was able to spell it. Approach was a little more fun. We used the word app, as in application, A-P-P, and I chose to make her laugh and tell her to remember the word cockroach because roach is in there as well, and then of course the ED at the end. She started giggling and laughing, but it became more fun for her to remember those words. I focused on where she made the mistakes. I only focused on 3 words out of 25, right? And they were the ones that she got wrong, but instead of criticizing her and drilling it into her head, I made it fun. I'm not saying you're going to be able to do that with your husband or your wife when it comes to infidelity, but you could find a way to tell them what you need without pointing out what they're not doing. I have not been successful, but I have tried. And it works when the other person is open to listening. There have been times in my life where I had a partner that was not all the way open to talk about sex after the fact. And yes, I chose sex and it's a taboo topic or whatever you think. But the point is, I feel like if in an intimate setting, you can't ask for what you want, chances are you're not asking for what you want anywhere else in your life either. You're just taking what happens and you're kind of settling and going on your merry way. But that's not how you meet your needs. So here's what I'm saying. A lot of times after the fact, it's really a great idea to relive the intimate moment or the escapade you just recently had and talk about the things you really loved. Because that encourages the other person to do that again. If they know that they can please you doing this, they will try to recreate it again. It's almost like, how do you bake a specific chocolate cake? Now, once you have the recipe, right, maybe you tweak the recipe a little bit. Once you have the outcome that you want, that specific taste, that flavor of chocolate or whatever, all you have to do is recreate it exactly. So that means you have to duplicate those same actions, those same ingredients, those same quantities in the same order in order to get that specific outcome. Now, sex obviously is not a recipe, but it does have components that you want to include in order to provide pleasure for your partner. Because let's face it, when your partner is happy, chances are they're more likely to do things that make you happy too. And it doesn't have to be in sex. It could be in everyday life. People talk about, oh my gosh, it's hard to get your wife or your husband in the mood because you can't just snap a finger or just suggest it all of a sudden and then they're in the mood. It starts from the morning until the moment that you decide you want to have sex, which means you need to keep your partner happy or find ways to encourage them throughout the day or, find ways to show them that you love them. Because when people feel well loved, they're willing to do pretty much anything for you guys, right? So in those situations, you need to judge the fact that infidelity happens when someone's needs are not being met. Now, the question remains, are they asking for those needs to be met? Are they letting you know something is missing or not? Some people may be too ashamed to say any of those things, which is why I have half and half when it comes to my clients. Some people want to work through it. Some people are like, oh, hell no, we're not doing this anymore. I'm gone. I can't do this. Whereas the other person's calling me because they want to save their relationship somehow. The point being, if there is something missing in the relationship and you're able to ask for it, that becomes a gray area. Now, cheating is black and white. But why is the gray? And that's the part that I try really hard to teach people to manage. It's not always as simple as, oh, you know what? They shouldn't be killing people. Because what about self-defense? What about situations where the other person has been told that a specific group of people are the enemy and you need to shoot them before they shoot you? What about, when an intruder breaks into your house and they are pointing a gun at you and you're doing the best you can to survive in that moment? What if you're in a position where you're being raped and you're doing everything you can to get out from under that person, and unfortunately you accidentally used too much force and killed them? So there are so many pieces of gray that you can't really judge unless you have context. And this is why I teach, because I know you have more gray in your life than just plain black and white. I know I do. I know my daughter at the age of 9 has more gray in her life than she has black and white. I can tell her how not to hurt people, but I can never tell her what will hurt specific people. It's subjective. I can teach her not to cheat, but I have to deal with the fact that at some point she may actually cheat, but I need to find out why. And then we go through the troubleshoot process of learning what to do to prevent any other situations where she feels desperate enough where she has to cheat. It's that kind of mentality that I'm working with. These are the reasons that I actually teach and why I believe so firmly that, yeah, okay, there's black and white, but there's more gray than any of that. So I need you to be able to manage the gray in your life in order for you to find joy, in order for you to find peace, in order for you to find more excuses to just be yourself. Now, I know I covered a lot. There were a lot of examples from all over the place. I hope I made some sense. If you have any questions or concerns, please drop them in the comments below. But in the meantime, you guys, consider this. Yeah, okay, there's black and white on the surface, but there is also a lot of gray. And how do you manage the gray? How do you feel about the black and white? Have you decided what is black and white to you? Can you consider the fact that what might be black and white to you may not be black and white to somebody else? Please, you guys, I'm hoping that you understand through the course of this podcast that there is more gray and that you shouldn't judge until you have context. And even then, you have to consider what the other person saw as options and what they couldn't see. Their state of mind plays into that. Their prior experience plays into that. What people around them are telling them plays into that. So please try not to judge and try to consider that what your black and white looks like may not be black and white to somebody else. I hope this helps you guys. I love you. Bye.